Hey everybody, my name's Mike White, and I've been a graphic designer for about 20 years. I really specialize mostly in Inkscape and Adobe Photoshop. Today I'm going to show you how to make images with AI and how to create your own designs, and then hopefully have a follow-up or maybe extend it into how to clean those designs up. So the first thing I'm going to show you is I use Gemini, and so I'm just in my non-paid free account. It's my Gmail, and I'm logged into Google, and I've gone to gemini.google.com. Okay, and I can literally just click on create image and describe an image, and I've already done that. I actually I'm in another account here where I actually pay for Gemini because I use it so much. But if you're just using it a little bit, to get started, you won't need to do that. And the first thing I did is I said, give me some cute Christmas t-shirt ideas. I'm recording this tutorial literally on Christmas Day. And it came up, so I just said cone up, so I misspelled it. Come up with some cute ideas for a Christmas t-shirt. And it's given me lots of cute ideas, like Fleece Navidad, a fluffy cartoon sheep wearing a Santa hat and a red scarf. I came down here and found these sweet and cozy ones. And I liked this running on hot cocoa and Christmas cheer. And it just says a steaming mug of cocoa with marshmallows forming a smiley face. And those would be the words that I would put on it. So I'm not going to try to get the AI to do all of it for me. I'm just going to try to get the AI to do the visual part, because I can add the letters, I can add the text, that's no problem. And that gives me some, artistic control over the final design. So I went and I just started asking it to make that image. So I said a steaming mug of cocoa with marshmallows forming a smiley face, cartoon style warm Christmas colors, and of course I also made sure to choose that create image, and I'm using Pro, so I just clicked down to Pro, which I think uses more credits or whatever, but you get so much for free every single day, so I wouldn't worry about it till it starts causing you a problem. So it created this image. And I said isolate it on white and orient it as a standalone design. So isolate it, put it on white. And of course it just showed me this part of the mug. And I said, can you extend the image to show the whole mug? So it did. It showed me the bottom of the mug, but I cut off the candy cane and the steam. And I will say that I can certainly have the skills to blend this image with that and then draw the rest. But I wanted to persist and see if I could get it to do it correct. So I said, now I'll show the top fully with the steam rising. So it sort of showed me that, cut off the bottom. And so I was like, okay, make it a square image with all parts of the mug and steam fully in view. And I finally got this. And this is good enough for me to say, all right, that's a good stopping point. That's enough. And I can take over for the AI from here. So you just click to download it. And it's just going to take a second to think about that and then download it into your downloads folder. And here it is, and this is what I've got. It's a 2048 by 2048. It's fairly large. It's 2048 by 2048 pixels. If you don't see this little window when you select something, just click on your little details pane here in Windows. And so 2048 is about 6.5 inches. By 6.5 inches, and that's the full size of this design. So it's not good enough to do like a really big design on a t-shirt. I might want something 12 inches by 12 inches. That's usually at least the minimum size I try to design for. So I'm not going to stop here. I've got to use another tool to make it larger. So if I open this up with Photoshop right now, and I'm going to use Photoshop. You guys can use Photopea. It's PHOTOPEA.com. Totally free. Photoshop's just my happy place. If I show you, myself working in Photoshop, I'm not going to fumble as much as I will in Photopea. But everything that you can do here, you can either do with Krita, which is Krita, which is a free open source download, or you can do in what I call Photopea, but other people pronounce it Photopea, which is PHOTOPEA.com. So just substitute and go use that instead of Photoshop. Unless you have Photoshop, then you're in good hands. So this is exactly what I do, is I use Photoshop. So if I zoom in on this image and look at it at 100%, so you can see I'm looking at it at 33%. Usually Control 1 in an application will make it zoom to 100%. I can see that the quality is good. But again, if I look at my image size, it's too small, So what I'm going to do is upscale it. So I'm actually going to go to upscayl.org. If you don't have it, it's Upscayl with an AY, upscayl.org. That's how you spell it. And you're just going to click on desktop, and then you're going to click on download. I'm going to use the Windows version, and it's going to download Upscayl. Okay? So I'm going to rename this image before I do anything else. And I'm going to call it Running on Cocoa. Alright, so I got a nice name. And I usually put like OG after that. So I'm going to put like OG to remind myself that's the original. That's where my whole design started from. And I'm just going to open Upscayl. And I'm going to hit Select Image. I'm going to find that image and hit Open. And now I'm going to blow it up here. So it's not the same as if I were to expand it in Photoshop. Like Photoshop actually has some generative AI upscaling techniques. But if I just increase the size, if I hit generative upscale, I can do this, and I can actually scale it up, and it uses the Firefly upscaler, which does a fine job. It's not great, but what I don't want to do is just go to image size and then just tell it to be bigger. Like if I came in here right now and said, be 6,000 pixels, well, you can probably see even through the video that it's going to be really bad quality. So what we want to do is actually redraw the lines, and that's why I'm using this Upscayl program. So I got my image selected. I don't need 16,000 pixels, that's insane. But I do want to go bigger than my final destination. So I'm just going to go like 4 times, and that's going to take it out to 8,000 pixels. And I want to do this, it might go slower. I have a really nice computer. It might go slower on your machine. Depends on your graphics processing unit, actually. And your general computer capabilities. But I want to do this before I try to remove the background. You won't really see a difference in the before and after, at least not much of one. But now it's created this upscaled version. And I am just going to take out that OG. I'm going to stay organized and try to, make sure you know what the different versions are on your computer. See, it's changed it from a JPEG to a PNG. And that's really good because JPEGs are always lossy, and every time you save a file as a JPEG, you lose some of the information. And if you save it as a PNG, it's what's called lossless. It's going to be a perfect image every single time. And if you can't see your file extensions, the best thing to do is to come down here and just go to File Explorer Options. So just look for File Explorer Options in your settings and go to View. And uncheck this hide extensions for known file types, because if you uncheck that, then you can actually start seeing what your extensions on files are, so you can see what file type they are. So that helps a lot. So I can see that's now a PNG. So I'm actually going to close this one in Photoshop so I don't get confused. And I'm going to go open that PNG version that's been upscaled. And now when I look at my image size, I can see that it's 8,000 pixels. So that's way bigger than I'd ever use it. I mean, I have to remember that I'm wasting some space around these sides and edges. You can see where that white space is, and that's definitely calculated in that number that it's given us. But this is, way bigger than I'll ever need it, so I should have plenty of extra pixels. And if I look at it at Control 1, now you can see, it's not perfect, but it's a lot crisper and clearer than it was before we did the upscale. Okay. So why do I upscale it before I try to remove the background? The main reason is there's just going to be more pixels for it to select when I use a magic wand or I use a tool. There's just going to be more pixels, so it's going to get a finer line when it makes a selection. Okay, so I'm going to hit Control D to deselect it. I want to select the whole image, and distinguishing between the steam part and the rest of it is going to be fairly difficult. Okay, so that's a tough distinction for it to make. So I've got my magic wand tool, and it's a tolerance of 80, and I have contiguous on, which means, connected pixels, and I've got sample all layers, okay? And I'm just gonna click around this brown outer part, and then I'm gonna click here. And so that's giving me like the basic outline of the mug. And I'm experimenting at this point. I'm literally just trying to see how to make my selection. This is one way to get the selections to start being created. So I'm going to right click on this and choose to convert it to a smart object. That will prevent anything from ever being messed with on that layer. And then I'm just going to do a new layer. I'm going to hit Control-Shift-N, or whatever application you're in, layer, new layer. So I'm creating a new layer. And I can hide that smart object, because what I'm going to do is just paint black in this selection. And what that's done is it's started giving me a mask, essentially. So let me show you what I mean. Now, when I click out here, and I'm going to click inside this mug, it's selecting all the way up to those edges. And it's a little confusing if you're not familiar with selection areas at first. But I'm going to hit Control-Shift-I and invert that. I'm actually just going to turn that layer off. And you can see now I've really got a great selection of just the mug, So now I'm going to actually, with that selection created, and I just use that other layer like as a temporary to give myself the ability to make this selection really clean and nice, like I've done. And I'm just going to Control-C while I've got this layer selected. I'm going to hit Control-C and then Control-Shift-V. And now if I turn everything else off, you can see I've just got the actual mug isolated. And the only thing I'm lacking now is the steam. So now I need a kind of a solution for selecting the steam, okay? And I'm going to keep contiguous on, and I'm just going to click in this gray area. And what's happening is it didn't work. It actually selected everything. So I need to lower my tolerance. So I wanted the higher tolerance for the part that I felt like needed it. I wanted the higher tolerance so that I could get a really hard edge around here. But I'm going to have to do something different to select this steam. And I'm playing with different ideas, and that's what you do with every image. I call it learning the image. So I'm going to try the magnetic lasso. So I'm just going to, magnetic lasso, what it does is it tries to follow the differences between pixels. So I've just selected it, and I'm just going to click here right at the edge where I want to start selecting. And I'm just going to follow carefully around. And I'm not having to be too precise because it's doing it for me. It's actually like following it for me, And just, after a good run of selecting, I'm just going to kind of cut it off here. And I'm going to click right here on this other edge and just keep going around. Okay? And now I'm getting off my screen here, so I'm just going to cut it off again and come back around and connect up. And I'm not worried about the fact that I have overlap there. That's not a problem. And then I'm just going to keep doing that. So I'm just going to click and then follow. So what we're doing is we're doing a manual background remover. We're selecting the parts of the image that we want to keep. And what that does is it gives you a really nice hard edge. And it prevents like the problems that you have with an automatic background remover. So like it's fighting me right there. Okay, so I just kind of fought it until it did what I wanted. Just kind of went over it. But when you use an automatic background remover, it's usually got a fuzzy edge to it. And it has a tendency to do things like take the whites out of characters' eyes and just all sorts of things that are not good. They're not going to be good for your image. And that's why we want to use, do some kind of manual technique for selecting the part, that we want to keep. I'm selecting what I want to keep. And each time I click, I'm expanding my selection. I'm hitting Shift and then clicking. and you can see this little plus icon next to my my tool, and that's what I'm doing. So I'm just going around it. Oops, it messed up right there, so I caught it, and it went back. And if it had screwed up, there's definitely ways to fix that. In fact, I'll make sure to make a intentional mistake here in just a second to show you how to fix that. So see, it's just following it around, and I'm zooming a little fast. I also have my mouse speed fairly low on my computer settings, so you can just, go here and you can type mouse and find your mouse settings and turn the mouse pointer speed down. So I'm running at a 3. Some people are always amazed at how well I can draw with a mouse. I just have my mouse speed turned down enough that it's pretty easy to do so. And see, I get in pretty close so I can see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to select here, just outside. I held shift because I'm expanding my selection, and I just selected a little outside or inside, whichever way you want to look at it, of the area that was already selected. So I'm just expanding along that selection. And we're just following all around here. Here we go. It kind of got a little funny there. And remember, I promised to make a mistake, so I'm making a mistake right there. And I'll show you how you can refine that. So I can just come in here and I can just, again, do the same thing and just kind of fix that part. And up here, there's a little wobble as well. You can see it right there. I'm just going to go slower there and let it fix that part. Okay, that's pretty good. And if I wanted to be, if I wanted to remove this part down here, I can hit Alt and just follow like the brim of that. I definitely do want some overlap of some kind. Okay, and so I just followed around that with Alt, so that it removed that. So now I've just got that steam and that little disc-colored portion of the cup. And I'll just go back to my layer 0 where I have my smart object and hit Control-C. And then Control-Shift-V, and now I can turn that off, and I can see that I've got just my steam isolated. And there's a lot of decisions to make here. I mean, what I could decide to do is cut those parts out, and it all depends on what color shirt I'm going to put this on. So if you don't know what color shirt you're going to put it on, just leave all the color. But if you do know, then you can start cutting out certain colors, okay? So now I've got a really good selection, and since I'm working with a very big image that we upscaled, I should have a pretty nice outline here. And so what I just did is I created a black layer that I can turn on and off. It's not going to hurt anything, but it's going to allow me to see like problems with my design, okay? And so I can see that there's kind of like a little edge, especially when I zoom in. There's like this little edge of dots around the outside of this. So I don't want that. I'd like it to have a smoother edge around the outside. And there's tons of different things I can do at this point. I mean, I can add a stroke. So I can come here and I can add a stroke. I'm going to do blending options and then just do a stroke and put it on the inside and then change the color to this brown. Okay, and you can see that stroke coming in and just smoothing out all those little edges right there. So you can probably see that in the video. I'll zoom in just a little more so you can see it even better. But see, here's no stroke. Here's the stroke coming in and just forcing that consistent color around the outside. And I mean, I think I like that. I think I like that smooth. AI tends to put a lot of different odd colors and things in. So I'm just going to hit OK on that because I think that is my solution. And I'm not going to worry too much about my steam parts because I think they're going to be pretty white anyway, and it was cut off a white background, so you're not going to really see much of a problem there. But let's just demonstrate what that stroke did on this part right here. We'll zoom in and we'll turn it off. And then we'll turn it back on. And look how clean that's made my edges. And I really want to focus. Our eyes are drawn to the edges where, we just naturally, as humans know to look for mistakes there. So, having clean edges is everything, okay? All right, so now we've got our image, and it consists of these two layers. And you could name them, you could say mug, and you could say steam, and that feels nice and organized. And then I'd like to, probably group those layers, and I'll call this artwork. All right, so look, we've got an isolated image, and now all we need to do is add some text. So to add text, you need a font, and I'm going to, just use a part of my text. And I literally just searched Christmas fonts. I went to DaFont. I'm in Holiday Christmas on DaFont, DaFont.com. And I like this site, and there's plenty of other great sites too. And so, I'm just going to choose a font that looks decorative to me and is legible, And I like this one right here, this Foremost. Obviously this is where your design, sentiments comes in. And I'm just going to download that font. I'm going to take the time to save my design. So I'm going to save my design. I'm just going to call it on Running on Cocoa. And I'm going to go ahead. I may have to close Photoshop to install a new font. So I'm just going to do that because that's the way it worked in the past. And I'm not sure how things are working now. So people ask me, do I do the open type or the true type? They should both work. Kind of old school, so I always go for the true type. Don't really have a reason for that though, so I just do it, So I just opened up the zip file and went with it. And I'm going to open Photoshop back up again. And there's my recent design, and I can open that. And if I want to put the text, like say I want to put it in a circle around the outside here, okay? I need more space. So I'm going to do a couple things here. I'm going to change my resolution to 300. So I turned off resample, and I'm going to change my resolution to 300. And that tells me how big this image really is, 27.307. So it's pretty big. And I want to talk about the visual weight of the image. The center of the image is actually the center of the smiley face. That's the focal point of the entire image. So everything needs to kind of be balanced off that. So you could make it the eyeballs of the little smiley face. That's a good central point for this. And I'm just going to trim though around it. Let's do that. And then I'm going to add some canvas size. So I'm going to grab my crop tool, and I'm just going to extend it out so that that's still back in the center. I'm going to hold Alt and actually extend that so it's in the center. And then I need a lot more space, so I'm going to have stuff going around it. So I'm just going to go around like that. I'm just looking at the size of the image. And you can do this however you want. Just get yourself some more space around, okay? And let's go with that, okay? So let's say that's our final size. We'll trim it again, but that gives us room to work on the image. Okay, so now I'm going to try to put the text on the path, and I always struggle with this, so bear with me. So I'm going to choose an ellipse over here. It's, you've got these little drop downs, rectangle tool. I'm going to choose the ellipse tool, and I'm going to make sure it says path and not shape. So I want path, and I'm just going to go, up in the top right corner, and I'm going to hold shift as I drag and just position that path. And then I want to align it, and I'm struggling with how to do that. This is where my path skills are a little bit of a struggle. Yeah, I want that to be just right around. Okay, and it's centering up there. Okay, that's pretty good. And then I'm going to take my text tool, and I'm going to find that font I just installed. So it's called Foremost. There it is, Foremost Regular. And I'm just going to wait for the text tool to turn into that. It looks, if I click here, it's going to go inside the path. But if I click right on the edge, it kind of makes those wavy lines, and I'm going to select the actual path. So let's just click there. And it's not really doing what I expected there. Let me see. So it's a little buggy, and I hate that. I'm trying to teach you all how to do stuff, and it's screwing up, but I've still got my path back here. I selected it again. I came up here and I clicked, and this time, for whatever reason, it worked. And so I'm just gonna type, and I'm gonna say running let's see if I'm not sure if I want those to be uppercase or lowercase. I like that lowercase look. Okay, running on hot cocoa. All right, and that'll be like the top. So let's see how we can fix this initial starting point for the text. So you actually change to your path selection tool. That's how you do this in Photoshop. And I can show you how to do this in Inkscape sometime too. That's probably an easier way. And I'm just trying to move its start point. And then it's not having the desired effect. So I'm not going to freak out about that. Let's see what we can do. Can we just transform it? Let's hit Control T. I'm going to select my, and see what happens if I just tilt the circle and hit enter. So that's working, and I'm not going to fight it, So running on hot cocoa, let's look at our size. I probably want to see that a little bigger. Yep. And then I'm going to have to adjust again because I don't have a better way. And this is also causing some strain on my computer. I mean, that's because of the size I'm working at. If this is causing you a problem when you're trying to do this, you can literally make the image smaller, and that's going to make it easier to deal with. All right, so I keep hitting enter, and I'm just kind of guessing on that point. And I'm just going to try to move it again. I've got that tool selected. Now it's working. It's dragging for me, and I'm just going to drag it around till it fits. All right. And then if you want to invert it inside the circle, because that's what we want to do, we actually want to start another type path. And I'm just going to find that original work path. I'm switching over to my work path section. And I'm just going to click again. And I'm going to type "and Christmas cheer." Alright, so now I've got 2 layers. And if I look here, I think I'm going to have 2 different running on hot cocoa type path, and then here and Christmas cheer type path. And this part is really weird. I've still got that direct selection tool, and it's like you have to hover over it, and I'm just holding Control and pulling it inside and then moving it around, and I'm just praying that does it for me. So I've got that selected. This is where you just have to kind of fight it. I'm going to try using that Control T again to just twist it. I have to hit enter to confirm. Really seems to be struggling. Oh, there's my little... Yeah. It's getting better. So we'll call that a day for now. And then I can increase my spacing. So I'm going to go, like 50 at first and see how that affects it. So that spaces it out so that the letters aren't all scrunched up on each other. And I'm actually going to go 100. All right. And yeah, my computer's really struggling on this. No, I don't want to move the path, so I'm fighting it here. I'm sorry. So I'm just going to hit Control T, and I'm going to hold. I think Shift and Alt are both necessary to expand exactly the right proportionally. And I probably went a little too much there. I'm going to hit enter though and just see my result. So that's pretty what I had in mind. So actually that worked pretty good. and I'm pretty happy with the spacing and everything. And none of my text is off. Okay, so I mean, I'm going to call that good. And then we can experiment with what we want to do with the color. So I am going to reduce the image size because, you know, I'm just struggling so much. And it's just such a big image. I never need it that big. Let's go to 20 and hit OK and just see what happens. I mean, I think that that's going to make my computer be a lot more responsive because it's just not as big. So I actually wanted to have resample on and then hit OK. So it didn't really resample it. That should actually make things a little simpler for my computer. And still, I've got plenty of wiggle room. Yeah, and I'm pretty happy. I mean, I can play here with my rulers and just make sure that things are pretty lined up. Like, see that? It's a little bit off. So if I just want to spin that a tiny bit, I don't even see a change there. Let me try that one more time. Okay, I'm getting a live preview now because the computer is actually not struggling as much. So, you know, you can play with this endlessly and try to get it just perfect. We'll leave it right there. And then I'll just do the same thing. I'm moving my ruler up here to kind of give myself an idea of how good I did on the other one. Let's see if I can just tilt that ever so much and just make it just a little more perfect. Hit enter to confirm. I'm using Control T to make those selections. And then I can change the color, and I'll just use colors from the design. So let's just, you know, let's try the red up here, and let's try the green down here. And now the design looks, you know, fairly cohesive. And if you were going to put this on a black shirt, those colors work. And if I was going to put this on a white shirt, those colors work great. And you can kind of experiment with everything in between. It's not going to work great on a red or a green, but you know, it's going to look fine on black and white, which is good. So if I really wanted to worry about this working on a red or a green shirt, then what I would do is either change the colors of those fonts, or I would stroke them. So I could take this and I could do blending options, and I could put a stroke, and I could put white, and I could reduce that stroke, you know, on the outside just to have it like, you know, pop off the back. And I actually kind of like that. So I'll just copy that style, copy layer style, and I'll paste it on this other one. And that'll bring both of those into the same kind of world there. Okay, cool. All right, so now I'm going to trim it up. So I'm going to do image, trim, transparent pixels, and then I'm going to do image and size, and actually size it for the final dimensions of what I want. So, okay, so 14 by 17, that's huge. I mean, that's a really big image. You know, I've got a 16 by 20 heat press, so I never ever go bigger than that. But I think this is a fine final size. So now what I'm going to do is do File, Export, Quick Export as PNG, and I'm just going to name it, you know, Final. And I have got a PNG image. That's my final. And there we go. All right. Hey, I hope that helps somebody. Enjoy designing with AI and cleaning up your images and getting them ready to print. Have fun.